And Elon Musk is on a race to build the next generation of AI, but he's running into a very human problem. People in one small Mississippi town say the makeshift power plant built to run his AI data center is disrupting their daily life. NBC's Priscilla Thompson has that story.
Home to more than 50,000 people, South Haven, Mississippi is a quiet suburb. That is, residents say, until Elon Musk's AI power plant came to town. For months now, this is the sound communities near the plant hear. All day and night.
It sounds like jets are taking off and they never take off.
Coming from dozens of methane turbines sent to power Elon Musk's AI data center. That's the power plant, and we're getting a decibel reading here in the low 60s. That's about as loud as a dishwasher running 24/7, just steps from that house.
When I was a little girl, the garden was right over there.
Crystal Polk's family has lived here for generations, before Black people were even allowed to own property. What has life been like for you since the turbines came to town?
Excruciating. The noise is constant. It never ends.
This is the noise level that we are experiencing at 9 o'clock at night.
Sometimes it's very, very, very loud, with loud screeching and railing, like rails are hitting up against each other. That's just unbearable.
And it's not just a concern over noise, but air pollution too. Nonprofit newsroom Floodlight published this thermal drone footage, which they say shows the gas burning at the facility. The Environmental Protection Agency has said gas turbines are a major source of hazardous air pollutants, including formaldehyde and other probable human carcinogens.
I have severe asthma, and sometimes I can smell the pollution in the air, and I don't want to be exposed to that and cause more damage to myself.
The Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality telling NBC News right now they've confirmed the facility is utilizing efficient air pollution control technology to minimize emission, despite operating without an air permit for months, which the department said wasn't required for the initial temporary turbines.
We don't really know how bad this pollutant is right now.
Jason Haley has doubts.
Do you worry it could be bad?
Yes, I do. You shouldn't put this right next to people's neighborhoods.
He co-founded the Safe and Sound Coalition, a group trying to stop those turbines from becoming permanent.
It's March 5th at 12:10 a.m.
He says people like this officer come by every few hours to take decibel readings, but that the readings don't tell the whole story. We took a decibel reading down at the park, and it was like in the 50s, 60s, which is equivalent to the hum of a dishwasher, which might not sound like much to people.
I've heard the comparison to this isn't much louder than my dishwasher or my vacuum cleaner. It's louder than that. Well, you don't run that 24/7.
XAI did not respond to NBC News' request for comment about the Mississippi plant and residents' concerns. South Haven's mayor called the noise a legitimate concern and says XAI installed a $7 million sound wall and is considering more mitigation. He also emphasized the economic impact.
Our city and entire community will soon reap unprecedented financial benefits from this new strategic alliance.
XAI plans to spend more than $20 billion in the area, the governor announced, bringing with it much-needed jobs. But Jason and Crystal are not alone in their worry. Hundreds of people showed up to the state hearing in South Haven, urging officials to reject XAI's bid for 41 permanent gas turbines. This month, Mississippi regulators unanimously approved those permanent turbines, which the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality says will require an air permit. On X, Elon Musk said he was thrilled it was approved, adding it powers the future of AI innovation. A future the residents we spoke to say will cost them their own.
I can't live with this. I'm going to have to move.
Tell me more about what's happening for you right now.
It's just the thought that this may be the end of something that's been in my family for years. I feel like we don't matter to those who are in charge, that we are invisible to them.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC News, South Haven, Mississippi.
Priscilla Thompson with some important reporting. Priscilla, thank you so much. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now. I mean, even just seeing the gas turbines, it's pretty wild. Anybody out there live next to a data center? I mean, it looked like a beautiful place, but just constant sound. All right, we've got a lot coming up in the future of everything. The whole top of the show, we're going to be talking about this landmark case that just happened in New Mexico. The Attorney General in New Mexico suing, or actually taking Meta to court and winning. So there was this massive $300 million plus judgment against Meta, and the implications here are huge. And again, this is the New Mexico case. There's still the Los Angeles case. That is before a jury right now. There are hundreds of other cases against these big tech giants, and so we're going to see what happens going forward. But it just seems like today is a very, very historic day. They have to use water for AI and electricity and energy, and there's a lot of, and land. I mean, can we just skip to the space AI farms? If those are actually going to happen, we'll see. Yes, exactly. Reed, very good point. I'm on, I think it's Instagram or TikTok. There's this person I follow. I don't remember what their name is, but basically they're like day 55 of simulating what AI does, and they just drink like a bottle of water, and then they just say something that may or may not be true, and it makes me laugh. It's pretty funny. All right, we're about to do the D block? D block.
Future of everything.
Okay, future of everything. If you're following right now, whole block, okay. If you're following right now, you're gonna get a sneak peek at what's to come. We're gonna pre-record this right now, and let me just double check. We have something here. So you'll see what looks like us going live, but you'll see a little bit later in the show where we put this in. And we're going to be talking to AJ Dellinger about Mark Zuckerberg's experiment with building his own CEO. So stay tuned for this. Here we go.
Stand by. 3.
Man, tonight in the future of everything apart from today's monumental court case against Meta, I want us to think all back to 2016 when Mark Zuckerberg built an Iron Man-style AI to run his home. Remember these?
Good morning, Jarvis.
Good morning, Mark. It's Saturday, so you only have 5 meetings.
Jarvis knows when to make me breakfast.
Your toast is ready.
All right.
Those posts, it felt like simple times back then, because now Zuckerberg is building an agent to help him run his company. He's using it to get information faster, like answering questions that would normally go through layers of people, according to a reporting from the Wall Street Journal. And he also wants everyone working at Meta to also build their own AI assistant. Let's bring in AJ Dellinger, who has been covering all of this. AJ, thanks so much for being with us. Is this just another sandbox experiment for Zuckerberg, or do you think that this is going to actually change the way the company is run?
I wouldn't assume that it's going to change the way that the company is run. I think that it's, more of an experiment than anything. The company obviously is invested heavily in AI and is trying to find some use cases for it. And, maybe that's in the C-suite.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear him say that he wants everybody to create their own AI assistants. And you imagine you training your assistant takes a lot of time, takes a lot of input, and then all of a sudden you get fired or you leave the company. Facebook would still own that assistant, right?
Yeah, presumably they would. I think there's been a lot made of people, workers essentially training their replacements by working with AI agents. I think that's certainly something that, people working at Meta are probably well aware of. There was a Reuters report recently about potential layoffs coming that may be related to, embracing AI across the company in an attempt to improve efficiency, as I think the company will probably frame it. So I think that's something that the people working at Meta who aren't Mark Zuckerberg are probably worried about.
A lot of us journalists are looking forward to, more posts from Mark Zuckerberg and trying to figure out, was this written by AI or was this written by Mark Zuckerberg, which is something that we've been wondering for a little while now. I also wanted to ask you about this other tech news, massive tech news that we're following today. OpenAI saying that it is shutting down Sora, that AI video app that they hyped up like crazy less than a year after it launched. Like, is this a huge deal? What happened to their deal with Disney? And did this all come down to, I don't know, the amount of energy that it takes to generate one of these videos, or is there something else going on in the landscape?
I think there's probably a number of factors, but cost is definitely one of them. I think not just the cost for outputs, but the fact that it's very difficult to monetize these platforms. I don't think that AI has really cracked, or OpenAI has really cracked that code. I don't think anybody really has at this point, particularly when it comes to generative AI content. I think that other than the ad-supported model, there's not a whole lot of models out there that companies have been able to embrace and actually use, especially when the cost is so high to create these things. And when you have a deal with Disney that was supposed to be, a $1 billion investment fall through and you lose access to that IP, there's just a lot less interest in using the platform.
Yeah, Sora, rest in peace. AJ Dillinger, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And still to come, a Mississippi community is blaming a nearby power plant for an AI data center that is disrupting their lives and health. Priscilla Thompson traveled there to take a look. But first, you gotta see this. This is an incredible dog rescue that was caught on camera in upstate New York. Copper the Golden Doodle, he was struggling to stay afloat in the middle of the Seneca River. That's when the local sheriff's office flew in for a helicopter rescue. They flew that little pup to safety. Police say Cooper was treated for the cold conditions he was swimming in, and he is doing just fine. What a chopper ride. We'll be right back. Four and a half. All right. I think that works. There was that slight pause. I'm wondering, there's no way to clip that, is there? To tighten it? All right. What's up, everybody? How's it going? We got Julie Sirkin coming up. Julie is on government shutdown watch. She is at Capitol Hill right now. There she is. She's doing her stuff. And we're going to be talking to her in just a second. Lobato cat, that is a very good question. I haven't seen one other than among peers. SML, looking straight at you. User FR, something. No, that's not true. James, thank you. But you know what? You don't have to send those. We're just doing the news for free. But I think that means TikTok's up, right? Yeah, we're ready. Let's go. Julie Sirkin coming up. And for more on this, let's bring in NBC's Julie Sirkin on Capitol Hill. So, Julie, exactly what does this path forward look like, and how is it different between the deal that Trump shot down over the weekend?
It really isn't, Gotti. It's basically the same deal. In fact, when the Republican leader, John Thune, was asked about that, he joked and said he thinks that maybe Trump just listened to his Republican colleagues more than him, because it really is the same deal. It has the same contours. And what it does, of course, is essentially funds all of DHS, including Customs and Border Protection, including parts of ICE, but none of the controversial ones, meaning none of the enforcement provisions that ICE does, that Democrats have been fighting against with the White House. Now, at this point, of course, we don't know what happens, because Democrats now are saying they're not going to accept this deal unless there are changes to immigration enforcement. Republicans are saying you wanted to fund DHS minus ICE enforcement this whole time. What changed? So that's the current position we are in. But it is a huge step that the president changed his mind from yesterday to today, seemingly open to a deal.
Yeah, and Senator Mark Wayne Mullen officially sworn in now. What could we expect from DHS under his leadership here?
Yeah, Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen atop the Department of Homeland Security could be enough for some Democrats to support a funding deal even before this whole negotiating process took place, because they just so dislike the job that Kristi Noem was doing. Even some Republicans thought she was much too harsh, focusing on the wrong things, especially months ahead of a midterm elections. But other Democrats aren't buying it. Just because Senator Mark Wayne Mullen was a good colleague to them here, worked across the aisle, talked to them frequently, they don't know that he's going to be able to do that while working as part of the president's team. But certainly a major move, a major shift. Even some Republicans that I talked to hope will happen at the Department of Homeland Security with ICE operations specifically. But you'll recall, even before this change happened and Mullen was confirmed, Tom Homan, when he took over operations in the field, he already implemented some changes. He admitted they needed to have a softer touch after at least 2 American citizens were killed at the hands of ICE. And so this really is a situation that is still raw among Democrats, but also some Republicans who think that the administration needs to focus on criminals only ahead of the midterm elections. Gotti?
Julie Sirkin on Capitol Hill for us. Julie, thank you. All right. So the saga continues. No end in sight. We'll see how things go. All right. What up, everybody? What up, chat? How's it going? Interesting take. Read. Interesting question. Uncle Roost. Some would argue in his administration that they are qualified. Let's see. Interesting. SML, hello. All right, here we go. Where is Lisa? There she is. Hello, Lisa. How you feeling today?
I'm okay.
Let me turn you up. Oh, I can hear you.
I might attempt to walk down the street tomorrow.
Oh, nice. If
Big day. Big.
And you're like, if you're wondering what's going on, and you're like, this is news down here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a random woman sitting on a couch in a very comfortable sweater. That's our boss. This is our executive producer.
I've been grounded.
This is Lisa Crivelli. She is awesome. The problem is she is working remote because she is a very wonderful skier. Had a little bit of an incident and is not as mobile as she would like.
Even Lindsey Vonn had an incident, okay? It happens.
Yeah, I blame the Olympics. I think you were watching the Olympics and I think you were like, oh, that's easy.
No,
I can
actually,
get on the
I
slopes,
kind
can
of
do
blame you because you got in my head with your level of doing like double black diamonds in Italy. And I'm like, what Alp? You're from New Mexico. How are you like crushing it in the Italian Alps and everything? And then I get to Vermont and I'm like, obviously, hello, girl from
New
the
Mexico
Poconos,
has
I can
great
do
skiing.
that.
Taos versus Vermont is like night and day. Taos is vertical. It is just straight up cliffs. It's crazy. But yeah, thanks so much for the vote of my skiing confidence.
You've never been to Vermont.
You know, that's true. That's one of the 5 states I have left to not visit.
Don't ask me how I know that, but I do.
Yeah, it is crazy that you remember that. It's Vermont. It's like all of New England. It's like Vermont, Maine, Rhode Island.
You could drive through Rhode Island. Like,
I know.
you're done.
What are the other 2?
All beautiful states, by the way.
Vermont, Maine, Rhode Island.
Maine is gorgeous. I would go back there in a second.
Anyway, it's some of those other little teeny tiny.
I know.
Tiny states down there. But how
is the chat today? Is the chat spicy? What's the couch
we started
question?
a little bit early. We're experimenting with starting a little bit early, and Austin Vlogs is like, hey, why are you starting early today? I don't know. YOLO. Like, we just want to hang out with you guys. Yeah, we had a bunch of pre-tapes early, and I was like, well, we might as well just let you guys see how this works. So a lot of times, like Richard Engel, he's 2 o'clock in the morning in Israel right now, so he pre-taped with us. Julie, it's pretty late over on Capitol Hill. Not much going on now, so she pre-taped with us. But yeah, Hey, how's it going, Tina? Ooh, Tina's here before the show.
Tina's the spicy chat with all the ski falling. Thank you, Tina.
You know, Lisa, Tina has been skipping the A block because it's been too stressful for her. But I'm glad you tuned in today, Tina, because today we are leading with social media. We're going to be leading with this landmark decision that was just made out of New Mexico. And no, it's not just because it's from New Mexico. It is the first decision of its kind against a major tech platform. So Meta is going to have to pay over $300 million unless the appeals come. Right now, what you're seeing over here, this is the pre-tape. So this is the editing and the kind of making sure everything rolls well. But that's how the show is put together. But yeah, so we're going to be leading with the Meta decision. Meanwhile, here in Los Angeles, we're still waiting for a decision on the other landmark social media case. We're going to be talking about whether Section 230 was invoked or whether it was sidestepped. It seems like it was kind of sidestepped in the New Mexico case, and all the implications that are going to flow downstream from that. So, you saw what yesterday? I'll get my popcorn ready. Okay, good. Popcorn is great. Watching the news with popcorn is pro-level move. And then, Tina, we're just looking to do another story at some point about Ramageddon and how that's influencing the development of video games. And all that
Well,
good stuff.
and also where people go
I saw the whole show yesterday.
to get games.
Nice. Yep. All right, so if you guys are just following us and you're wondering what's going on, this is my experiment over at NBC News to see what happens when we have a two-way street during the news. What could go wrong? We basically have this show. Stay tuned now. It starts at 5 o'clock on the West Coast, 8 o'clock on the East Coast, so in about 12 minutes. And you guys get to ask questions here in the chat, and you guys get to talk amongst yourselves. And whenever I can, I will look at the chat, and then I'll try to answer your questions. And they're even like more relevant when they are on topic, on whatever we're covering in the news. So feel free to weigh in. Lisa and I, we have this thing that we talk about constantly, which are couch questions, which, as it would so be, like Lisa's on the couch. So I don't know about you guys, but when I'm sitting at home and watching something either on let's the bring in phone NBC or News on Chief my Foreign laptop Correspondent or on Richard Engel, who's in TV. Israel tonight. Like, I find Richard, good to myself see you. so Let's start with often, the scene on the ground right now. Break screaming down at the all these TV, strikes like, just throughout ask the this Mideast question. today. And it's usually like a very basic question that whoever's doing the news forgets to ask, but it's the most important question that's happening. And so we try to ask those couch questions, but then a lot of times, like, I get caught in the weeds too, like any ordinary news person that's like, oh, well, tell me about the minutia here, tell me about the minutia there. No, big picture. So anytime you guys see couch question opportunities, feel free to throw those in and be like, hey, don't forget, like, where does the war in Ukraine stand right now? Like, is Ukraine winning? Is Russia winning? We understand all of the troop movements and all those things, but like, give it to us straight. Like, who's winning, who's losing? Like, those kind of things. So, so often those things are lost when we have long, nuanced conversations, but those things are important tentpoles in any sort of discourse. So please keep us on task on those things. Let's see. What? Oh, how many chats are you following here? Following the TikTok one, the YouTube one, and the Twitch one. So sometimes you'll see me. Look, we would love to consolidate all the chats. It would be great to consolidate all the chats and then show them here. However, we are not a tech platform. So does Section 230 apply to us? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But it gets really tricky really fast. And so you can see that, like, you guys get to hang out on your chats. I have all these ideas on like the things that I'd love to do to make this two-way street even better. But right now, this is the way we're doing most of the conversations. So if you're in TikTok, like it looks like Tina's in TikTok right now, that's where Tina's chatting. If you're over on YouTube, that's where we've got Reed and SML. SML is a hardcore YouTube chatter. And so like the discourse is going to be different from platform to platform. And we'll see what happens at Twitch. So if you know people on Twitch, tell them, wait, hold on. Maybe we're not on Twitch today. I think we are. Let's see. Twitch. Oh, boom. We're on Twitch today. How many people are here? 0 or 1. I got 1 Twitcher. Yeah, we need help over here. Lisa, what's going on? What is everybody doing?
I don't know how to Twitch. I would help
You don't know how to
but
Twitch?
I have to ask my children how to Twitch.
Like that.
Tina probably.
This is how you Twitch. You can Twitch this side too. Anyway, Lisa's on the couch because she's trying to get better. SML, she has a lot of recovery to do. I have to use VPN all the time. Interesting. Reed, where are you again? I think Reed is somewhere over there. Reed knows what's up. SML, his couch question is, why is Lisa on the couch? I get it. I see what you did. Very, very, very funny, SML.
Okay,
see,
that
somebody
took me a
called you a
minute.
bot
Sorry.
earlier. That's not
Sorry.
bot behavior. That shows true human ingenuity. Cheers to you.
That's cute. That was cute.
Yeah, Reed is in Russia. So, Reed, what kind of things do you hear in the Russian news about everything? Like, how are they framing what's happening in Iran, what's happening in Ukraine, what's happened with Venezuela? The Twitch username, Gotti Schwartz, me. GADISCHWARTZ. But yeah, gosh, Reed, just go off. Tell us everything about what it feels like over there. And you don't have to give away anything crazy if, the people are monitoring the chat. But I would love to know what the perspective from Russian media is right now. Oh, wow. Tina moved over to YouTube to see Reed's comments. That's fascinating. There is no news in Russia. I never read local news. Good to know. Doreen. Hello, Doreen. How are you? Hey, Madison. Thank you so much for sharing this stream on TikTok. Monkey Beasts has started following. What's up, Monkey Beast, on Twitch? Now we got 2 people watching on Twitch. Awesome. Where's my mug? Right here. Is VK still popular? VK. What is VK? Tina's in the know on all kinds of stuff.
Tina, what's VK? Is that a game? Is that tech? What is it?
VK. What is it? Oh, it's their social media platform. All I know about things that are in pop culture in Russia right now is Escape from Tarkov. And I have avoided playing Escape from Tarkov because I have a job to do. And I feel like if I started to play that game, I would not be a very good dad or a news person or anything. I am not very good with big games and productivity. So, but anybody that's played Escape from Tarkov, have you escaped? Because I have seen some people escape Tarkov, allegedly. Where are my graphics? They're coming up. 5 minutes, they'll come up here. VK is a Russian version of Facebook. Yeah, I just took a look. It looks pretty wild. Read a Substack about the lower Red Sea, second choke point. I saw that, yep, the Bab al-Mandeb choke point. I need to research that a little bit more, but yeah, I'm wondering if that's going to play into geopolitics in the very near future here.
Oh my God, Tina's talking about
moved over to
our current
Twitch.
favorite writer in the YouTube.
What?
Andy Weir.
Oh.
Tina's making an Andy Weir reference.
What?
He used to be a game.
He was? I thought he was a teacher. He is like, that's my favorite. That was my favorite book. I don't know about you guys, but
I can't wait to see that movie. I wanted to go this weekend.
I am kind of. Yeah, you know how I feel about this, Lisa. This one's a tough one. Like, Project Hail Mary was such my favorite book for a very long time. Still is. But there's this weird thing that happens. Maybe you guys will feel like this if this thing that we've got ever blows up. But you know how you find something before it goes super mainstream and you love it so much and you're like, this is my jam and I love that I only know about this and this, I get to think about it and all that stuff. And then boom, it goes super mainstream and then everybody jumps on the bandwagon and then you're like, this, and then you're just kind of sad. And that's how I feel about Project Hail Mary right now. Like I love it. I love that it's going huge and everybody else loves it as much as I do. But what the heck? It used to be our special thing.
Oh, they're saying on
now,
TikTok they're hearing that the movie was good. I will say the press tour has been awesome to watch. Ryan Gosling doing his thing.
Dude, don't rub that in because like that again. I want to be doing that press tour. I got all the questions about astrophage.
You know, and I was
and they
nervous
do
what
have
they
some
would
really
do
good
with
astrophysicists
because
that
if they
are
screwed
on
up
that press tour.
Rocky, things could go really bad.
Yeah, but Rocky's a tough. I mean, it looks kind of similar to what I imagined in my head. That being said, I'm going to Japan tomorrow for another press tour. We're going to get to talk to some people, some characters that I'm very excited about, so that should be fun. I won't be here tomorrow, though. No, everybody does not get their news from social media. I get it from NBC. Doreen, thanks so much. Dang, it's hard. Like, this was a fun chat. We didn't even talk about the news very much, which is great.
See, you need me to drop in the pre-show
to.
I have to produce the pre-show now, clearly too, as well. That's what happens.
I know. The pre-show is very fun. All right, so here's how it's going to work. In just a little bit, 2 minutes, we're going to start the show. We're going to be talking about social media. We're going to be talking about this Facebook decision and this Meta decision out of New Mexico. And speaking of which, I just need to check some stuff. We got Jacob Ward back, right, Lise?
Yep, Jake Ward is back. We also got Misty to break down the court case with all of this. And then while this is still going on, we're still paying attention to the courtroom in Los Angeles, where they're still deliberating on a totally separate case.
I love this. This is great. Tech companies have with the government. Nice. Okay, perfect. Let's see. We got 1 minute, so a few more questions. How are your ratings, my guy? Don't people get their news from social media nowadays? I don't know. I think they probably do. I think actually the big disruption, like we're past the social media day. Like now people just go straight to AI and they get their news, which isn't always accurate, which is another existential problem. But ratings are great. We're doing great. Lots of growth. All kinds of stuff. Let's see. Independent media is the future. It's already here. I would agree that they have a very important part in this landscape. Okay, let's start the show, guys. To be continued. Just stay in. Okay, first question over here. Okay. All right. Hey there, I'm Gotti Schwartz, and tonight we are starting with some massively consequential news out of New Mexico, where a jury has just found tech giant Meta in violation of state law in this landmark case over child exploitation and user safety. Now, Meta is being ordered to pay $370 million in damages, and beyond that, the state attorney general will now be pushing for court-mandated changes to Meta's platform. This is what he told one of our reporters after the verdict.
We need to see real age verification. We need to see changes that eliminate infinite scroll, that really dig into the design features that we know lead to addiction, that amplify the mental health harm.
Now, in a statement, Meta says, quote, "We respectfully disagree with the verdict and we will appeal. We work hard to keep people safe on our platforms and are clear about the challenges of identifying and removing bad actors, harmful content." Now, this comes as a jury in California right now here in Los Angeles is also deliberating over a separate lawsuit against Meta and YouTube, and the ramifications of today for that case, for the case in New Mexico, can be massive. Joining us now is NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris and tech journalist Jake Ward. Good to see you both. Misty, first starting with you, a state winning up against the world's largest social media company, all while this case in LA right now is also in the jury deliberation room. What kind of precedent are we already seeing set here?
Yeah, so Gotti, we're seeing cases brought in different ways under different types of laws. So when you're talking about that LA courtroom, that's a products liability case based in negligence. In New Mexico, this was a consumer frauds case brought by the state of New Mexico through the Attorney General. So we're seeing a lot of these very novel legal theories, which is paving the way for other individuals as well as now states and other entities like schools to bring these cases seeking liability for the way that these apps are designed and the disclosures that are made by these companies relating to potential harm.
Yeah, and Jake, you've been following big tech for so many years. How consequential do you see this for the future of social media?
Oh, I think it's absolutely enormous. The floodgates have opened here, Gotti, not least because, you know, this is really, I think, a sort of a philosophical shift. There's this moment happening, I think, in front of us in which juries, you know, everyday people are suddenly understanding the idea that our behavior isn't entirely of our own choice, that there is something bigger in the kind of architecture of these platforms that drives human behavior to some extent. And so even though these companies are in theory protected under Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act, which makes them not liable legally for the weird stuff that you and I might post on there, but they are just now suddenly liable for the design choices they make. And that has historically been very hard to communicate to a jury. So for me, that really just calls into question all of the protections that social media companies have enjoyed or thought they enjoyed until now, and means that they are going to probably redesign how social media works. And in effect, they're going to redesign how childhood works here, Gotti.
Yeah, and it made redesign the way that we communicate, because social media has already rewritten the way that we interact with each other in so many different ways. Jake was just bringing up Section 230, and Misty, I did want to get your legal analysis here. Not to get too in the weeds here, but Section 230, that is that clause that really has allowed social media to grow into what it is. It basically says that platforms are not liable for what their users do. Does that change now, or did New Mexico's AG in this particular case find a workaround, getting around Section 230 here?
Yeah, to Jake's point, these social media platforms have largely enjoyed immunity because of Section 230, which is a federal law that says they can't be held legally liable for the content that's posted. But yes, Gotti, these are legal workarounds. So here you have state consumer frauds laws about what was misrepresented, according to the state, to consumers about the safety of these platforms. So the particular lawsuits are not about the content. That isn't actionable, but it's about the way that these social media platforms are designed and what people can view because of those algorithms and what pops up because of those algorithms and age restrictions and all of that. And that coupled with what they say are misrepresentations or false representations about that safety. So these are very, very trailblazer legal theories that we're seeing in these cases, and got like 1,500 cases waiting in the wings.
Mm-hmm. And Jake, thinking big picture here, thinking at a societal level, one of the things that the United States has is so many self-correcting mechanisms built into the democracy that we know. We've been complaining so long about how fast tech moves and how there's been a lack of regulation, and yet here we see jurors putting up what looks like some guardrails, right?
Yeah, I mean, really what this is the courts doing what Congress has failed to do, right? There hasn't been any federal law around social media except what's called COPA, which is this Child Protection Act, which actually just got updated back on March 5th in a unanimous consent vote in the Senate. It still has to pass the House, but, you know, there's some political will around this, but the Congress just hasn't pulled its weight here. And so, I interviewed AG Raul Torres, who we saw there earlier, who won this case in New Mexico. He said to me, we don't want to be doing this court case by court case. We want the federal government to do this instead. And so it's been a funny moment because there really hasn't been a lot of democratic inputs into tech. And now, in this most American of ways, right, civil damages, right, this is the place suddenly where laws are going to be made. And I think it turns out to connect to a long historical pattern of in places where we just can't get our minds quite around the idea of behavioral harm, which is kind of the category we're talking about here. It's the courts that had to figure that stuff out. It's the ambulance chasers, it's the lawyers, right, who make money off this stuff that finally have the incentive and the horsepower to make it happen. And so here we are again with those kinds of court cases leading the way here, Gotti.
Yeah, and Misty, when it comes, there's the damages, so it's over $300 million, which is a drop in the bucket for $1 trillion company. But then there's also the potential for court-mandated changes to the platform. Like, how does that work?
Well, so in this particular case, this is all about civil penalties. And in the case playing out in Los Angeles, you have civil damages for that particular plaintiff. But with all of these other cases, some brought by states, some brought by schools, when you have an entity and you're working under the laws of a state as opposed to just being an individual plaintiff, there is the ability to seek injunctive relief, restraining orders, to have those changes made through the courts. So as these cases play out, there could be, as Jake said, there's this pressure to avoid liability that's happening through these cases because of the damages that are being awarded. But there could potentially be other legal cases that work their way through, go to the jury, go to a judge, where there's actually decisions in the design that are mandated to be changed. And I think where you really will see it is as these cases go up on appeal and we have a whole other, world of appellate law relating to these social media platforms.
And Jake, really quick, into some of those product design choices, can you take us through how we got here? We heard the AG talking about like endless scroll, age verification, but what were the things that were found to be so problematic that they were found, liable?
Well, it's really, it's the grouping of people together that has been the great both sort of promise for consumers of social media and has also been its strategy, is right, putting us into buckets, connecting us and our interests to one another. In this case, what the AG in New Mexico seems to have proven is that Meta's system for doing that turns out to have brought adults together with teen content in such a way that created kind of a funnel for people's worst impulses to take flight here. And so that's really it's both sort of central to the promise of social media and turns out in these edge cases to be a real problem. And now it turns out a real source of liability for the companies. Now the question becomes, what kinds of changes could the technology make, and will that in some weird way make social media a less anonymous thing? Critics that I talk to say that they're worried about a victory here somehow making the internet a less anonymous place in a way that for many kids will be a bad thing. But clearly, I think we're in the middle of a real reckoning where the days of a wide open, consequence-free environment for these companies is over now, Gotti.
Yeah, Jake Ward, Missy Maris, really appreciate you. And now we will watch to see what happens during this appeal process with $1 trillion company. Thank you to you both. And turning now to the war in the Middle East, while the president says he is deep in talks right now with Iranians, both sides launching new attacks today with the United States striking military targets in Iran and out in Tel Aviv. Just take a look at some of the damage here after Israeli failed to intercept what was a ballistic missile. Meanwhile, according to President Trump, really significant progress has been made at the negotiating table. Take a listen.
I don't want to say in advance, but they've agreed they will never have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that. They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it. So that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people.
And let's bring in NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel, who's in Israel tonight. Richard, good to see you. Let's start with the scene on the ground right now. Break down all these strikes throughout the Mideast today as we're hearing these reports from the president.
So President Trump is now effectively declaring victory. Not even effectively. He declared victory. He said the war is done, that they've been defeated militarily. Yet at the same time, exactly the same time that he was saying that, we were filming not far from where I am right now, and we were filming a cluster bomb exploding in the sky. If anything, this war is escalating. More troops are heading to the region. We heard about an extra around 1,000 from the 82nd Airborne Division. That's in addition to the several thousand Marines and sailors who are already on their way. So we've got a large fighting force that's heading this way, not leaving this way. So while the president's declaring victory, things are exploding above Tel Aviv. Troops are coming. The Israelis are carrying out massive strikes against Iran. They hit a facility that they described as an explosives production facility in Isfahan. Hezbollah in Lebanon firing dozens of rockets at Israel. Thousands of Israeli troops are now in southern Lebanon, and they're talking about here in Israel, Israeli officials are talking about staying in that country, potentially occupying a piece of southern Lebanon. And one official is going so far as to say that Israel's new border should be inside Lebanon. So it is not that this war is winding down. At this stage, it is winding up.
And at the same time, two sources are telling NBC News that Trump's approval of the deployment of more than 1,000 soldiers from the 82nd Airborne to the Middle East, that's now happening. So as Trump says we're making progress, as Trump says that, the war is over, these service members that are coming to where you are right now and to the Middle Eastern region, what are they to do?
So militarily, things are being blown up in Iran, right? So when they talk about, and Central Command talks about the number of targets hit and the number of missiles that have been destroyed and the number of facilities in Iran and the number of ships that have been sent to the bottom of the Persian Gulf, Iran has been set back. Its supreme leader has been killed, replaced by another supreme leader, his son. The Iranian military undoubtedly has been weakened, but the Iranian government is still there. So why are all these troops coming? And I think it has to do with the risk that has been exposed by Iran, its ability, which, by the way, the Houthis had already shown the ability of a relatively small country to close a strategic choke point in the world, or at least threaten traffic. And I mean, of course, the Strait of Hormuz. So it seems that these troops are going to be coming to make sure, even if this war ends in a potential negotiated settlement, that's still very potential. Pakistan as a possible mediator, Pakistan offering to be a mediator. It is very possible that those American troops will stay in some capacity, either protecting shipping, protecting tankers as they go through, perhaps potentially occupying islands. That is something that that many people in this region have been talking about. Could they take Harg Island, which is already had its defenses destroyed by the U.S. military? Could they take some of these smaller islands and use them as castles or fortresses in the middle of the sea and potentially have a very long-term presence there, turning the U.S. Navy into a kind of oil merchant marine for an indefinite period of time? They're still coming. It has to do with oil. It has to do with the Persian Gulf. The question is, how long will this mission be? Is it just a quick pass-through to show support, to maybe clear the area? Or are they going to be forever guardians of oil and gas in the Strait of Hormuz?
And Richard, this Pakistan offering to be an intermediary, isn't Pakistan fighting like multiple fronts right now?
Pakistan is a very large Shia community. It has good relations with Iran. It used to have terrible relations with the United States. Those relations have since improved. The worst of the days would be during the Osama bin Laden, of course, he was found hiding not far from a Pakistani military base. But relations have improved by then. So Pakistan could potentially play a role as an intermediary. The traditional countries that played this role have been sucked into the war. It was always Oman and Qatar that were playing the role of negotiator between the United States and Iran and everyone else. But during the course of this war, both Oman and Qatar were attacked. Turkey was floated as a possible intermediary, but Turkey's a NATO country, so it makes them seem potentially more biased. They have other influences to balance. So Pakistan is landing as a potential sweet spot. The question is, are these negotiations real? I've been here and I've been in Iran, and we've covered 2 rounds of negotiations already with President Trump, and he has attacked Iran during both of them.
Richard Engel, really appreciate the context. Thank you so much. And now to new details about that deadly collision at New York's LaGuardia Airport Sunday night, as officials are now questioning if fatigue might have played a factor into this tragedy. Now, during today's briefing, the NTSB said fatigue and the shift the air traffic controllers were working, they've been a concern in the past. Take a listen.
We have identified the mid-shift generally as concern in other investigations, largely due to fatigue, because it spans that time frame at your circadian low during the day when you're most fatigued.
And we're also hearing about the final minutes before the crash. The plane's cockpit voice recorder revealing that the fire truck was cleared to cross the runway just about 20 seconds before that accident, which killed 2 pilots. Tonight, we're learning their names, Captain Anton Foriat and First Officer Mackenzie Gunther. 40 other people were hurt, some who are starting to speak out about that flight. Many of them say those 2 pilots saved their lives. Now let's bring in NBC's Sam Brock, who's at LaGuardia Airport. Sam, do we have any more clarity on how things went so horribly wrong here?
Certainly no definitive clarity, Gotti, but Jennifer Homendy, the chair of the NTSB, cited 2 potentially huge problems with specifics: staffing and technology. Let's talk about the technology side of this first. ASDX is the radar movement that's detected. It's a combination of satellite technology and ground radar, where when there's a likely incursion to take place, there is an alert set from the system. It's been around for a decade plus, to the control tower to let them know about it. But for some reason, in this case, the fire truck that you see over my shoulder far in the distance that's turned on its side never tipped anything off, at least its proximity to this plane, obviously both of which had received clearance within seconds of this all happening. And so it was 20 seconds prior to the incursion, by the way, when the truck got the clearance to move. That's sort of the margin of error that we're working with here. And why that alert never went out, she didn't specify. But we did learn today, Gotti, there was no transponder on the truck, which is to say no precision, nothing tracking its precise movement. Could that have been a leading cause? Potentially. That's under the microscope. We also mentioned staffing because Ms. Homendy said she even has skepticism over the idea that there were 2 confirmed controllers in this tower, and that is standard operating procedure across the country at this time of day, specifically late evening going into the morning. There's less volume, fewer need for more eyeballs in those circumstances, except if you're dealing with a major airport, there are weather conditions as there were on Sunday. Homendy said this has been a topic of conversation in the ATC community for years, with many people saying you've got to change the standard. And now we know there were 2 people who were working in the control cab, as they say, that evening, and it's a standard that could be changing.
Yeah. And I know you've been hearing from passengers who were on that Air Canada flight. What have they been telling you?
We spoke with one woman, Rebecca LaCourie, most recently, but we've spoken with a handful of them, who said that it was a very volatile, a very turbulent landing because there were weather issues to begin with. But Ms. LaCourie also said she immediately perked up when the flight attendant, as they were getting ready to land, said, "Hey, be prepared, there could be an emergency outside." And she was like, "What? I can't ever remember hearing someone say that." So she looked out and saw all of these police vehicles and fire trucks. It wasn't just the one behind us. There were a multitude of them. We're not exactly sure how many. And before you know it, there was this massive impact, bam. And she said that it was just absolute chaos because the flight attendants, the crew themselves were injured. There was no one there to help them. So she said that she and her fellow passengers had to open up the rear exits and slide out of the wings. So that process is all going on. She's still trying to understand what's happening here as far as the initial moment of impact. Here's what she told us.
All I heard was a screeching, him trying to brake to slow down or prevent the collision. And then after the break, you just heard the loudest boom, and we all just jolted forward out of our seats.
Gotti, in total, there were 41 people who were hospitalized. There were 72 passengers on board that plane. You do the math. More than half of all of the passengers had to be hospitalized. At least at this point, there are 6 that remain in the hospital. The vast majority have been released. But it shows you the potential for what could have been a much higher fatality toll. It's kind of incredible that it wasn't.
1 minute.
Yeah, and those 2 pilots that were killed, are we learning a little bit more about them?
We are, not a ton more. We have learned that Antoine Foray is one of them. On his Facebook page, he noted that he graduated from the 12th year, as they say in Canada, back in 2013. So he was probably about 30 years old. You also have Mackenzie Gunther, whose college in Canada put out a statement acknowledging his death and saying that he had graduated with honors in 2023 and went straight to work for Jazz Aviation. So this is someone that had to have been in their mid-20s, you know, only a few years in the aviation industry. These were people with promise, with full lives ahead of them. And because of an incident involving odor on a plane and some terrible communication here, those 2 young men are now dead. And that's a pretty harsh reality that many folks are trying to grapple with now.
Yeah, such a tragedy. Sam Brock at LaGuardia, thank you. Meanwhile, chaos is continuing at airports across the country. NTSB officials heading to investigate that crash at LaGuardia. They were literally delayed by long TSA lines.
Yesterday, we had significant delays with investigators getting here due to backups of TSA lines. And in fact, I understand that this press conference had to move because the lines were actually wrapping around the building.
These are the scenes currently playing out at so many airports. Hours-long lines that start outside, but there are some signs that relief could be on the way soon. Sources tell NBC News that Senate Republicans think that they have found a path to a deal, and Democrats might be open to it. Here's NBC's Tom Costello.
Tonight, word of a potential breakthrough that could solve those hours-long TSA lines choking critical airports.
Got up at like some ungodly hour to get an 8:15 flight.
4 sources familiar with the negotiations tell NBC News of a potential deal in the works between the White House and Congress to fund the Department of Homeland Security. President Trump with newly sworn-in DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin.
We're going to take a good hard look at it. I want to support Republicans.
Under the proposal from Senate Republicans, DHS, including TSA, Coast Guard, and FEMA, would be fully funded, as would portions of ICE that combat drug trafficking, but not immigration enforcement, which would be negotiated later. Democrats have been demanding such a compromise while insisting on ICE policing reforms. Among travelers, mixed reviews to ICE agents now in airports as unpaid TSA officers call out sick.
Just pay the TSA workers and get those people to come back to do the job that they've been trained for.
A deal to end the partial shutdown would mean TSA officers would again be paid, as they're set to miss a 3rd paycheck this week.
It's hard to come to work every day and not get paid, and bills piling up, creditors not understanding.
The good news, TSA lines were shorter at many airports on this typically slower Tuesday. NBC's Aaron Gilchrist is in Atlanta.
Atlanta's airport was jam-packed with travelers on Monday. Today, these TSA lines have been significantly shorter since the morning rush.
Tonight, hope that this latest government shutdown could soon come to an end. As for when a proposal might come up for a vote in the House or the Senate, we don't have a timeline. We can tell you, though, the clock is ticking because next week, both the House and the Senate are in recess. Separately, Delta Airlines turning up the heat on Congress as TSA officers are going to miss another paycheck on Friday. Delta suspending specialty service perks for members of Congress here at Washington's Reagan National Airport. Gotti?
2.5.
And for more on this, let's bring in NBC's Julie Sirkin on Capitol Hill. So, Julie, exactly what does this path forward look like, and how is it different between the deal that Trump shot down over the weekend?
It really isn't, Gotti. It's basically the same deal. In fact, when the Republican leader, John Thune, was asked about that, he joked and said he thinks that maybe Trump just listened to his Republican colleagues more than him, because it really is the same deal. It has the same contours. And what it does, of course, is essentially funds all of DHS, including Customs and Border Protection, including parts of ICE, but none of the controversial ones, meaning none of the enforcement provisions that ICE does, that Democrats have been fighting against with the White House. Now, at this point, of course, we don't know what happens, because Democrats now are saying they're not going to accept this deal unless there are changes to immigration enforcement. Republicans are saying, you wanted to fund DHS minus ICE enforcement this whole time. What changed? So that's the current position we are in, but it is a huge step that the president changed his mind from yesterday to today, seemingly open to a deal.
Yeah, and Senator Markwayne Mullin officially sworn in now. What could we expect from DHS under his leadership here?
Yeah, Secretary Markwayne Mullin atop the Department of Homeland Security could be enough for some Democrats to support a funding deal even before this whole negotiating process took place, because they just so dislike the job that Kristi Noem was doing. Even some Republicans thought she was much too harsh, focusing on the wrong things, especially months ahead of a midterm elections. But other Democrats aren't buying it. Just because Senator Markwayne Mullin was a good colleague to them here, worked across the aisle, talked to them frequently, they don't know that he's going to be able to do that while working as part of the president's team. But certainly a major move, a major shift. Even some Republicans that I talked to hope will happen at the Department of Homeland Security with ICE operations specifically. But you'll recall, even before this change happened and Mullin was confirmed, Tom Homan, when he took over operations in the field, he already implemented some changes. He admitted they needed to have a softer touch after at least 2 American citizens were killed at the hands of ICE. And so this really is a situation that is still raw among Democrats, but also some Republicans who think that the administration needs to focus on criminals only ahead of the midterm elections. Gotti?
Julie Sirkin on Capitol Hill for us. Julie, thank you. And don't go anywhere. Up next, a quadriplegic cornhole champion is at the center of a murder investigation. What we're learning there. Plus, wild video of the moment police officers jump to action to save someone from a burning car. Stay tuned for all of that. A quadriplegic cornhole champion murder suspect. It's a wild story. I mean, he doesn't have legs and he doesn't have arms, and he is accused of shooting a guy in his car and then driving away. Police say he is a prime suspect, and you have questions. Watch the video, and then hopefully you'll be able to kind of maybe understand what's happening there. But it is a wild story. It's one of those stories where I was like, wait, what? Heard the words, didn't make sense, and then watch this package, and it makes sense. All right, let's see here. Guess most of the... Wow, Reed, that's really profound.
1 minute.
Thanks for sharing that. Oh, Kat, thank you. You have to be equal in every way with others. Huh. Yeah. Let's see. It was all lack of slow communication. The area should have been cleared. Yeah. Horrible tragedy.
30.
A little bit later, we're going to be talking about some other news. I don't know if you guys have used Sora or Sora 2. Remember how we did all those stories about the AI social media video sharing thing that OpenAI launched? Looks like they're closing it. So we're going to be talking about that. Also, Mark Zuckerberg wants to make an AI CEO to help him out. That's wild.
5, 4,
Go headlines here.
3.
Hey, and welcome back. Here are some other headlines we are watching tonight. An American held captive in Afghanistan has been released today amid pressure from the Trump administration. His name is Dennis Coyle, and he's been detained for over a year on allegations of violating laws there, but the Taliban-run government never exactly said which ones he violated. And at least 66 people are now confirmed dead after a military plane crashed in Colombia. That plane was carrying 128 troops and crew when it crashed shortly after takeoff. The Defense Ministry says 58 members of the Army, 6 members of the Air Force, and 2 police officers were killed. Colombia officials say they are still looking into the cause of the crash. Brazil's Supreme Court grants house arrest for former President Jair Bolsonaro. That is a temporary move after being released from the hospital for some respiratory issues. Bolsonaro, who is 71, is serving a 27-year prison sentence for plotting a coup after losing the 2022 presidential election. And there was a huge explosion last night at this oil refinery about 90 miles from Houston. Large amounts of smoke and flames sent people nearby to shelter in place. Neighbors reported that that blast shook their windows and rattled their homes. Officials say no one was hurt and that the likely cause was an industrial heater. And officers saved a man's life after getting trapped inside a burning car over the weekend. This is Tampa police. They say that they think he crashed into the pillar during some sort of medical emergency, and officers then smashed the driver's side window, unlocked the car, and pulled him to safety. And now to the trial of a doctor who allegedly tried to kill his wife while on a hike in Hawaii. Gerhard Cohen is charged with attempted murder for allegedly attacking his wife at the edge of a cliff in Hawaii and then beating her with a rock. And today, exactly 1 year from that confrontation, Ariel Koenig took the stand telling jurors about the moment her husband allegedly attacked her.
I'm screaming and he's telling me, shut the up. Nobody's going to hear you out here. Nobody's coming to save you. And I'm saying, like, you can't do this. They'll know this wasn't an accident. Our kids will be orphans. You'll go to jail and I'll be dead. Like, you have to stop. And again, he's saying, like, you're done. We're done with you. We don't need you anymore.
Let's bring in Steve Patterson, who is in Honolulu, Hawaii. Steve, what did we learn today from her testimony?
Yeah, I want to start off with an update, if I can. Gadi, Ariel Koenig now off the witness stand, left the stand earlier. Now the doctor that treated her following those horrific injuries on the stand, first examination, now going through cross-examination. Of course, look, we learned a fair bit from Ariel's testimony. First, of course, centering on the attack itself, as you so well laid out, the pair going up that hiking trail, the mood changing, as she puts it, followed by that horrific, really bad attack at the top of that trail. But really the parsing is how each side sort of pertains to say what happened up there, right? The defense saying it was a retaliation, that they don't deny that there was an attack on both sides, but they're saying that she was the one to attack him and he retaliated. Of course, the prosecution thinking it of a different way. But what we really focused on today was sort of the trouble in paradise bit about this, right? The relationship, the marriage, as it were, and the extramarital text messages that were found that sort of put all of that in trouble leading up to the events that happened 1 year ago today. They found a batch of these really flirty text messages between Ariel and a coworker, kind of going through months of those messages, even showing some of those in court, saying that, kind of putting her character into question, saying that if this is the witness you have on the stand, what kind of a wife was she? And then what kind of a person was she, giving all these details about exactly what happened during that attack. Meanwhile, the prosecution sort of letting her admitting to it, basically saying that, she did have this, what she would describe as sort of an emotional affair, one that she regrets, says that she did flirt with this coworker, brought it up with her husband. They went through counseling, both together and separately, and they were working through it. But during that time, he becomes more irate, a little more controlling, and then that is what led to this attack. Both sides arguing their point. Who has the more persuasive argument? That's for the jury to decide. And again, this will continue at least, we think, until about mid-April or so. Gotti?
Wow. Do you think that we're going to hear from Gerhard? I know that, at times he seemed very emotional crying in court in previous days, right?
Yeah. Yeah, saw him in a court, of course, today. We don't know, Gotti. We simply don't know if he's been listed as a witness yet. Hazy if he will be at this point. But again, the trial set to last for at least the next few weeks or so. So we'll see. Gotti.
Steve Patterson in Honolulu. Steve, thank you. And turning now to this very bizarre story in Maryland, where a professional cornhole player who is also a quadruple amputee is accused of murdering a man in the front seat of his car and then driving off. Officials say Dayton Weber shot the victim and then drove off with the body still in the car. And Emily Akeda has the details.
Dayton Weber, who is a quadruple amputee, first gained attention as a professional cornhole player.
And the crowd loves it here in Milwaukee.
But tonight is back in the spotlight as a murder suspect, accused of shooting and killing passenger Bradrick Wells while driving Sunday, according to the Charles County Sheriff's Office in Maryland.
Apparently, the driver and the front seat passenger were involved in some kind of an argument.
The sheriff says Weber asked his two backseat passengers to help pull the victim out of the car. When they refused and got out, authorities say Weber allegedly drove off with the victim still in the car.
About 2 hours later, we did get a call. They indicated that there was a body in their yard.
Police in Virginia eventually apprehending Weber, who now faces charges of first and second-degree murder. It was not immediately clear if Weber has an attorney, and the public defender's office did not respond to a request for comment. Investigators did not explain why they believe the 27-year-old amputee was allegedly able to shoot a gun while driving. Weber's social media shows him conquering challenges, from shooting a rifle with captions like "no hands, no feet," to climbing a ladder and shooting a 9mm handgun. Weber's rise in athletics from a young age has been spotlighted in the media, exploring wrestling, dirt bikes, and eventually cornhole.
I just always enjoy a challenge. I think it's my biggest thing. I enjoy conquering things that I maybe had thought I couldn't do, or maybe that would be a struggle to me.
But in the wake of this week's stunning twist, tonight, the American Cornhole League saying in a statement, this is an extremely serious matter, and our thoughts are with all those impacted.
Emily Akeda, thank you so much. And coming up, we are following the latest on the war in Ukraine as Russia launches one of its largest aerial attacks. Signs the war is not slowing down. All right. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, Lisa, how did you get 100 XP? What does that mean? Thanks so much. I like Choco. Grace, the well-known troll. Always believe women, Grace says. What? I have questions. Same. But did the video answer some of the questions? Because I thought, I was like, what? And then I saw all the videos and I was like, okay. Makes more sense in my head. But who knows? Everybody is innocent until proven guilty in this country, according to the law. No idea, Lisa says. It's probably because she's the OG. A bad day for OpenAI, Disney deal. Yeah, that's coming up in just a sec. We're going to get to this coming up here. We've got 2 minutes until we discuss the latest in Ukraine and Russia. And so, Reed, this is hopefully for you, just to give a little bit of context to what's happening from this end of things. He said, she said, trial. Ruffles chips. Are you talking about the Koenig's trial? Interesting. When does Congress jump in on sending troops into war? Well, that's a war powers question. And as we've seen, the president is just sending in troops, and Congress is talking about him doing that. But I mean, the reality is that things are happening. It's a weird time that we live in. But yeah, the war powers debate rages on in Congress. So we'll see how it turns out. Aw, thanks so much, Tina. We have been trying. To me, that's one of the most important pressing issues, undercovered issues, probably. Thank you. What's with the ribbon? This is a yellow ribbon hoping that Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie, comes home safe. She's our co-worker here at NBC, and we've been wearing this. You'll see people at NBC wearing this across the platform. It's because we're holding on to hope that she's okay and that she's returned. But so far, they still don't know where she is. We do know that she was kidnapped, but our prayers go out to the Guthrie family. Let's see, 20 seconds?
About 10.
All right, here we go.
Starting right here.
Okay.
And then you're gonna pick
Turn into that. Got it. Hey, welcome back. Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine is now in its 4th year, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. Actually, just the opposite. Russia just launched one of its largest aerial attacks ever, firing off almost 1,000 drones in a 24-hour period. Now, among the targets, a 17th century St. Andrew's Church in the city of Lviv. Let's bring in Robert English. He's an associate professor of international relations at USC. Professor, great to see you again. 1,000 drones into Ukraine. All of this is just one heck of a reminder for us not to forget what's happening in Ukraine with Russia right now. But what is going on? Who is winning the war right now?
It's essentially where it was before. It's just that the pace of killing and the volume of munitions being expended is tremendously higher. The Russians have launched what appears to be a spring offensive, multiple attacks along the front. None of them have shown much success. In fact, they've incurred really high casualties. And these drone attacks are fighting on the other front, trying to demoralize, discourage the Ukrainians at a time when they're already worried that the weapons deliveries and the world's attention are all being diverted to the Persian Gulf. So it's a really tough moment for Ukraine.
We've seen Ukraine retake some ground as Russia is gearing up for this springtime offensive. Is there anything on the technological front in the drone space that is a game changer? Or again, as you say, is this just a quagmire? We're still in the same position that we were, but with more people dying.
The seesaw of drone warfare and counter drones continues. We've all learned, if we weren't paying attention through Ukraine, now through the Persian Gulf, that the Ukrainians have the world's best anti-drone systems, not $2 million Patriot missiles, but small, cheap drones meant to intercept other drones, especially the kind that Iran has, the Shahed or Geran in the Russian version. It's not a game changer, but it has, improved Ukraine's defenses and made some of these drone attacks, more difficult to inflict. But Russia has missiles. Russia has ways of defeating Ukraine's air defenses at great expense, but also at, vicious impact. So not a game changer, the seesaw of move and counter move.
And do you see the war with Iran right now impacting the war in Ukraine in a meaningful way?
It will if it continues much longer. We know that, of course, the skyrocketing oil prices have been of benefit to Russia's war coffers. The war chest has grown considerably. But if that eases soon, it'll have been a temporary boost for Russia, not a long-term one. And the same goes with the provision of munitions. If this war in the Persian Gulf can be wound up soon, then some of the air defense missiles and surveillance systems that have been diverted to the to the Persian Gulf front can return to Ukraine. It all depends on how much longer it goes on. The damaging has not been crippling yet, but it could become really serious in another 3 or 4 weeks.
And it's really difficult to tell what is real and what is propaganda when it comes to the way that the war is presented in Russia, also in Ukraine. And yet I keep seeing these reports about drone attacks, individual drone attacks targeting Russian soldiers, really demoralizing troops in Russia to the point that they are finding themselves putting, officers on the front lines that wouldn't normally be on the front lines and dealing quite the blow to morale. Is there any truth to that?
There's truth to that, but Russia has dealt with this morale problem from the beginning and largely dealt with it brutally. Yes, there are appeals to patriotism to keep people signing up, more and more they require huge payments, so it's an appeal to their budget. And then there's simply the brutal treatment of recruits that if you desert or if you refuse to fight, the punishment will inflict on you will be even worse. And that's the main thing that keeps Russia going. Not belief in their cause, not even the money. They're having to resort to really, really bestial tactics. But so far it's working.
An important conflict that we will continue to keep our eyes on, and we really appreciate you helping us do that. Professor English, thank you so much. And coming up in the future of everything, how Mark Zuckerberg is using an AI agent to help him run Meta and then urging all of his workers to do the same. Okay. All right. I think that's it, guys. I think that is. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Todd. Let's see. Is Lee still there? Lee's gone. Okay. So, this is a time of day where we say goodbye. I know it's only 5:46 here on the West Coast, and there's still a show to come. But unfortunately, we haven't figured out how to do some technical stuff. So, as you can tell, this is all very much experimental. The main show is on NBC News now, on a Samsung TV, a Roku, whatever you watch, Peacock, anything. Just find NBC News now and you'll see it seamless, the old school broadcast, right? This is still a little bit in the works, but it is all about this experiment that we're running. I am trying to convince people that this two-way street is the way of the future and that we should be able to talk to our viewers just like we talk to experts. And so we want to continue to do that. Vizo TV. Is it Vizo or Vizo? SML, I'm glad you're watching on there. So early. Yeah, I know. Well, she's got to recover. SML, I wish, and I would like to not talk about the war too, any of the wars, but unfortunately, humans killing other humans is as important as it gets. So we'll continue to cover that. The app, interesting. Watch Free Plus. That's so fascinating. How many people here are watching on a big TV and then having this little side conversation at the same time? Anybody? Kat, I wish that was not the case. I think that is true in so many ways, but I wish it was not the case at all. What's with the ribbon? Did I already? Yeah, I think we talked about that. The app. All right. I think with that, we're going to have to sign off for the day. But let's continue this conversation. And I remember what you guys said. Somebody at the beginning of the chat was like, social media is where everybody gets their news. This is social media. Those are existential questions that I think about a lot. I still think I'm like a mainstream believer. Like I love working for mainstream. And that's not to say that I get my news from everywhere. However, I think that, there's not one single news that can be everything, even if you're asking AI. You really have to have inputs coming in from all the different places. And again, like you heard us talking a little bit about the self-correcting mechanisms of this society. That's one of them, having different sources of information coming in. I think what NBC News does every day is so important. We are the biggest. We've got most firsthand reporting happening across the globe. You saw Richard Engel today from Israel. You've got people all over the place. Priscilla Thompson right now, if you're watching on the stream, she's reporting on this AI data center. It's just really important to have on-the-ground reporting, and we are committed to doing that, and it is very, very expensive. And social media just takes a lot of things that we do, clips it, puts it out there, scrapes the data. So yeah, there's a lot of questions to be answered on how all this is going to work in the future. But for now, I really believe that giving you guys the direct link to some of that first-person reporting is the best thing that we can do here. And then whenever I'm out there in the field, I give you that first-person perspective too. That's what I believe. And I also believe in community. So even though, it's just us here on the interwebs, somehow chatting, this is going to be so important in the future. when everything else is AI. So don't forget it. Hang out whenever you can. Comments, meteors. Why is NASA not telling us about that? I think they're doing a decent job. Watching you on my Samsung TV. Oh, interesting. That's fantastic. Junes, thank you so much. You're the best. Video game news segment request. FBI investigating PC Steam games for malware. Ooh, interesting. Hold up. Let me screenshot that real fast. Boom. At least, Tina, you always got the good stuff. No live stream tomorrow. Oh, yeah. And no live stream tomorrow because I'm in Tokyo. So I'm going to miss you guys. Hasta.